guys, Carrie from Carrie Buys Houses. Welcome back to the 5th part of our series on the top 5 mistakes to avoid when buying and selling a property. So this is
grand finale.
This is the grand finale. And so please pay attention, take notes, but of course this will all be up on my blog page if you do miss anything. So now what were all the 5 stages we went through? We went through basically to the point where you're negotiating the contract.
Yep,
with
getting the paperwork completed.
Yep, and this is with when you were buying it.
Mm-hmm.
Closing on it when you were buying it.
Yep, making sure you had everybody informed, the inspections, everything you had to do on the front end, so you didn't get any surprises after the fact.
Right. Then we went through renovation phase, so that was all the mistakes to avoid when renovating, which
we've made most of them.
Last week we talked about the marketing portion.
Right,
so now
getting it ready for sale.
Yep,
and
the
getting
house is ready.
Contract.
You're trying to find a buyer. Okay, now so today we have our buyer. Everything's gone through closing. Inspections are done. We're ready to close with our buyer.
Right.
Okay, top 5 mistakes to avoid. So what's mistake number 1, Augie?
Well, mistake number 1 is we fund a lot of our properties using private lenders. You know, individuals that just want to get a better return on their investment capital, and they find that working with us, they can do just that. But they're new most of the time, and you got to let them know they're going to get something called a payoff request, which means at closing, that mortgage is going to be satisfied. So let's say they loaned us $100,000, and let's say they loaned it to us at 6%. Okay?
That's a good loan.
That's a good loan. But hey, if you're getting 2%,
sure,
you know, in your money market account, which you're not getting today, so that's 3 times what you would normally get, and this is a safe, secured loan because you have real estate, a secure, you know, material asset backing up the loan. But if you were to borrow $100,000 at 6%, your annual interest would be $6,000, right? 6% of $100,000. So that would make the monthly payment, if I divide the annual interest by the 12 months in a year, $500.
So $6,000 divided by 12.
Right. So every month I might be sending that interest-only payment of $500
to the private lender.
To the private lender or their IRA or whatever it might be. Exactly. So what's going to happen though, the title company or the closing agent is going to contact that lender and say, what is the payoff amount?
Right.
And that payoff amount is going to be relative to a specific day. So
the day of closing.
So let's say we're going to close on the 15th of the month. Okay. So on the 1st of the month, I make my normal payment for the interest of the preceding month.
Because mortgage payments are always paid in the arrears. Your August 1st payment is actually from July. What? I can't get my months. What comes before August?
That's why we're a team. You know?
Thank you.
So anyway, hey, this is my month. So anyway, what's going to happen is the $100,000 needs to be repaid.
The principal.
And if the closing is on the 15th, we will have still used that money for half of this month.
Half of the $500 in interest.
So the payment, or the payoff rather, is going to be $100,250 because you've got a half month's interest.
So the per diem.
Right, and per diem is a Latin term, and they're always going to ask for the per diem in the event that the closing gets delayed a couple of days, or might even take place a couple of days early, so they can adjust for the specific dollar amount. So what you're going to do is you're going to take that $500 and divide it by 30, because they take 30 days as the average business month. And so
that's your per diem rate.
It will be your per diem rate, right? So if, say your payment was $600 a month.
Right, divided by 30.
Divided by 30, it'll be $20.
$20 per day.
Right.
For the loan.
In this case, it's going to be a little less than 20 because it's $500 a month divided by 30. But that's how you calculate your per diem.
But obviously the lender needs to do some calculations, so calling him the day of closing for a payoff might not be the best way to
and the other
inform your
thing
lender.
is, if you also advise them of this up front, that they will get contacted,
right.
It'll help them know how to prepare. I've had lenders, you know, when I first started out, what is this? What do I have to do? What's a per diem? You know, so we explain it in advance, and we show them how to calculate it, and we even tell them, call me, and we'll just go through the numbers together so everybody's comfortable.
Right. Okay, so number 1, make sure you order the payoff, or at least let your lender know that the title company is going to be contacting them with a payoff request.
Right. Now, number two is a way that we can actually save somewhere between $100 and $200, sometimes more.
Mm-hmm.
Because we have to remember, if we're going to close, we want to destage the house. Remember, we talked about staging the house. We're going to put in nice items in the kitchens and baths to give it that homey feel. Well, I've done it more than once that I forgot to destage the house.
I sure did too.
And in one case, they were kind enough to put everything in a box and leave it outside the front door for us to pick up.
It was very nice of them, because she did say we had some nice stuff. She could have kept it. Technically, it was hers after closing.
That's right. Anything you leave behind goes with the property.
Yes.
So don't forget to destage.
Yeah.
And that's usually best done the day of or the day before closing. And the reason you want to push it so late, even though you've got a contract, something could happen at the last minute and the closing ends up not happening.
Yeah.
And you need to resell the property. So
you don't want to have to restage it.
Restage.
That's time.
Yeah. I mean, the other thing you should always do before the weekend before closing is you should be letting your seller, your buyer know, don't do anything foolish that might cost you a job.
You had some guy punch his boss or something,
Yeah.
right?
Friday, everything is great. Saturday, he goes in, knocks out his boss. They get in an altercation.
Didn't get the loan because he doesn't
Monday
have a job.
Monday morning, the bank calls to do an employment verification before wiring the funds. No closing.
Yeah. Banks like people who have jobs, not who punch their bosses. So,
yeah. They don't care about punching the boss as long as they don't get fired, but...
Bosses don't like people punching them, so...
Pretty much. So... we don't want to forget to destage, and we definitely don't want to punch the boss.
Right. Okay, so number 3.
Well, number 3 is, if you were showing the house, you probably had utilities on, you probably had a lawn care company, you probably might have even had a pool company taking care of the property. So you need to disconnect utilities, you need to let your other service providers know that someone new is moving in, you are discontinuing the relationship effective this day. And if they are, lawn care companies or pool companies, they may want to get in touch with the new owners.
Right.
So to maintain that relationship.
Yeah. So we just had a closing yesterday on a property we sold, and I forgot to call the utility company. So we are now turning them off tomorrow, which means I'm paying for 2 days of utilities for the buyers.
On a house you no longer owned. That's very generous.
Mistakes happen. I know. I am a very generous person.
Okay.
It happens. Okay.
Yeah, the other thing, not on number 3, but moving on to the next area, is it's important, we've said that you want to work with a title company or a closing or escrow company, agent, attorney, that you know, like, and trust, because some of these closings have a lot of paperwork involved. Especially when your retail buyer is going and getting bank financing.
And signing their life away to the bank.
Right, because they get 3 days to review the paperwork.
Yeah.
But also, as investors, we use trusts, and we're not going to sign off on any of the closing documentation. That's all going to be done by our trustee. So I want to know, if I'm the trustee, that my seller, that the beneficiary has reviewed and approved the closing documents. Now, what that really means is that they've basically either initialed or sent us a letter of direction that instructs us to close this transaction and sign off on all of the appropriate documents.
Right.
Now, there was an article in the Orlando Sentinel probably 7 or 8 years ago where they did an expose on the title industry. And it said something along the lines of 1 in 3 or 1 in 2 settlement statements close with errors. So I don't know about you, but I sure wouldn't want that.
Nope.
And I know when I bought my first house in Florida while still living up in New York, when I got the closing package, most people just sign this stuff.
Right.
I looked and I said, wait a minute, I put $1,000 deposit down. I don't see it reflected anywhere.
$1,000
So that
you
would
could
have
have
been
lost.
$1,000 out of my pocket.
Yeah.
So I called them and they fixed it.
Sure.
But if
because there's always errors on other people's part because they're...
Right, and sometimes we agree to pay part of the other side's closing costs, or they agree to pay ours. So you want to make sure all of those things are properly
Right.
reflected.
I know we just reviewed a closing statement on a house that we're purchasing this Friday where the seller is bringing $20,000 to the table.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And on the closing statement, I saw where she was bringing the $20,000, but I didn't see
Where you
that
were getting the
where I was
20,000.
getting it. So I said, I don't see where the 20,000 went.
Right.
And it was just a mistake, and we all have to look at it.
Right.
Good couple sets of eyes on it sometimes just to make sure everything is matching. And she said, "Oh, I'm sorry, I forgot to put it in there."
Mhm.
So.
Right. So you definitely want to review the documents.
Mhm.
And then, last but not least, and this is important, especially when you're doing joint ventures.
Mhm.
You've got more than one party involved in the deal, and maybe more than one party benefiting from the profits.
Right.
So what we need to prepare are funding instructions. Now those funding instructions include a few different things. One is how you want to get paid. You want to get a check or a wire transfer. Now most banks make money on what's called float, which means the amount of time it takes them to clear a check versus the amount of time it takes them to credit you for those funds.
The money's floating.
Well, the money's floating, but the bank's getting to use it.
Yeah.
We're not just getting use of it or earning interest on it, depending on what kind of account it goes into.
Sure.
So, wire transfers give you immediate use of your funds. So, ordering a bank wire isn't normally best, but you've got to provide your wire transfer instructions to the closing agent so they know how to get the money from their account to your account. That's number one. But the other important thing that I was alluding to when we're working with a partner, joint venture or co-beneficiary, however we have the deal structured, is that you and I may be 50-50 partners on the deal, right?
Right.
And we've done some of those. But there are times that you may have laid out money for one thing and I've laid out money for
maybe
another.
I have 10,000 out of pocket. You only have 5,000 out of pocket. We need
So-
to reimburse ourselves
Right,
back.
let's say there's, $70,000 in proceeds. Even though our deal is 50-50, we're not necessarily going to get 35,000 each.
Right.
So those numbers need to be worked out in advance. And again, if you're using a trustee, I want to get a letter of direction that says, 30,000, goes to Augie and 40,000 goes to Carrie. I know
Right.
you like it that way too.
I do.
Or vice versa. But you've got to figure it out because the title agent is number one, not authorized to make that decision.
Right.
Number two, they're going to work only on whatever information they're provided. And number three, they do not want to hold on to your money a moment longer than necessary.
Right.
Number four, if I'm your trustee, I don't want your money, but if you don't give them proper instructions, they're going to send a check to us, made out to the trustee. And I think we should probably charge a 20% fee.
That's an accounting
Maybe.
fee.
Yeah, it's an accounting fee. No, in all seriousness, you want to just give proper
Just direct
instruction because
wires. Yeah.
we don't
to the
hold
seller.
any of our beneficiaries' money in our trust company.
Right.
It's intended to go direct to the beneficiaries, so we want to be able to provide accurate instruction.
Yeah.
So by making sure the beneficiary provides a letter of direction with the banking information, tax ID information, the other kinds of things that are going to be needed for the closing.
Yep.
And you definitely don't want to delay a closing because you didn't tell people how you want to get your money.
Yeah.
I mean, isn't that why we do most of this stuff? We
Yeah.
want to eventually get the
We want to get paid.
get paid.
We'd
So,
like to see the money go into our bank account,
there you go.
not float somewhere in an escrow account or in a trustee's office. So.
Right.
Yeah.
So there you have it. Order the payoff, but you need to talk to your private lender so they understand how to do that. We definitely don't want to have to buy new staging stuff if we pick up the old staging stuff,
Yes.
right? Turn off the utilities, or you can pay them as long as you want, but I don't know why
The
you want
buyers
to.
would be really excited.
That's true.
But we don't like to offer that service if we don't
Right.
need to.
Okay. Make sure you review the closing package in advance. Now, if you're selling to a retail buyer, they normally have a 72-hour right of rescission, not right of rescission, but review period.
Review period.
And if anything changes, that clock starts over again. So you want
Right.
to make sure the documents are in good shape in advance.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're selling to a fellow investor, to a landlord, you don't have that 72-hour window.
Right.
And there are some title companies, attorneys, and escrow companies that they send you the stuff the morning of closing.
Yeah.
That's not really how you want to be reviewing
not.
your documents.
Should be at least a day or two before.
Right.
Okay,
And
and then
then-
finally,
Make sure you have
You wanna
accurate
get
funding
paid.
instructions so that you can get paid.
yes, exactly. So what we've actually developed is a post-closing checklist. Which myself and my assistant uses so that we make sure all of these things happen before closing. Now this was an off week for us because we forgot to check off on the checklist to
Yeah, but you guys were at a seminar. all
it was
weekend,
a
so-
very busy week, but this post-sale checklist, this post-closing checklist really helps because sometimes we have a pool on one property and we don't at the other, so we have to remember, okay, what kind of maintenance have we had on the property? What do we need to turn off?
Exactly.
And one thing we forgot to mention here is insurance. If you have a vacant house policy,
Right.
say a 6-month vacant house policy, where 3 months of that
Is earned
is
premium,
earned.
but you could be entitled to a refund.
Right, you need to cancel the insurance
Right.
because if you no longer own that house and it's uninsured on a policy you paid for, well, that's wasted money.
Yep.
So make sure you call your insurance agent and cancel the insurance. But this is all ways, to save money so that that money goes into your profit
Right.
instead of out to just silly mistakes.
Right. Exactly.
But we do have that post-closing checklist, so if you do click on the link below, you can download the post-closing checklist that we use, and it will really help you to avoid all of these mistakes here.
And probably a few others.
Probably a few others. And of course, this is all in my the notes on Carrie's Corner under Carrie Buys Houses. And where can they find you, Augie?
CreatingWealthUSA.com.
Great. So that's it for today, and we look forward to the next series beginning next week. I'm not sure what we're going to talk about yet, but we have a million topics we can talk about.
bet.
If you have any suggestions, if you guys want to learn anything, you have anything specific you want us to talk about, please leave it in the comment section, and we want to talk about things that you're all interested in.
Yeah,
so.
absolutely. This is about you, not about us.
Yeah, so just leave it in the comment section if you have something you want us to discuss. Thanks, guys.
Have a great week.